Hey all you real estate enthusiasts! Welcome to Real Estate 101. Real Estate 101 is a series where I walk you through everything you need to know about buying a home, from dream to reality and right through to post-possession. I'm Val. I'm a licensed realtor with Royal Page Solutions with 15 years of experience. I'm super passionate about real estate and love helping people navigate the buying and selling process. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about writing up the offer. Congratulations! You found the house you want to put an offer in. This is a very exciting moment. So a couple of things need to happen. First of all, as your realtor, I'm going to need to reach out to the seller's realtor and make sure that there's no other offers on the property and no other offers coming in. If we're competing, we want to know at the outset. Next, we want to do it quickly. Once you find the property, let's write it up and get the sellers to commit to a deal because we don't want anybody else to come along and buy that property. So without further ado, let's look at the contract. There's a couple of things that we need to have in every contract, whether you're buying a condominium, whether you're buying a home, or whether you're buying an acreage. First, we talk about the price. We want to know what you're going to start at your offering price, and then we also know how much money is going to be accompanying the offer, i.e. your deposit for consideration. Your deposit does go towards the purchase of the home, but you do have to prepay it while you're still conditional. So you do have to have that money accessible and usually able to pay it within 72 hours of an accepted offer. These days, deposits are asked for in either a bank draft, e-transfer, or certified check. So keep in mind if you're putting a $5,000 or $10,000 deposit, which is pretty standard these days, regardless of the price of the property, that you want to make sure that you can either e-transfer that amount or be able to e-transfer in smaller increments if that's the way you want to pay it. Usually it's easier with a bank draft, and with all the virtual banks around, they're actually getting quite quick at producing a bank draft, but it will take you 2 to 3 business days. Section 8 of the purchase contract deals with conditions. You would definitely want a financing condition in there, and a lot of people want to have a home inspection. In a condominium, you might also include a condominium document review condition, which I highly recommend because that's usually where the biggest surprises come. I want to backtrack a bit to the home inspection because that is something that has evolved over the last couple of years. Typically, a home inspection is not just about finding any deficiencies with the home, but it's also learning about how your home works, how to turn off the gas, how to turn off the water, where your central sewer system is, all that kind of good stuff. So some people don't choose to exercise the option but can still include it in the contract. You can also have a specialty inspection. Let's say, for example, you want to have a roofer come up or someone look at the HVAC system or a plumber to just double check the sewer lines. Those are very specific inspections that are included under the property inspection condition. Lastly, some people will need to include a condition that it's subject to the sale of their current home or subject to a legal review or an accountant review. Those are all absolutely, you can include those conditions too. Occasionally we will write in a very specific condition subject to the board approving a 40-pound dog in the apartment. Even though it may say it in the bylaws, we want to get it in writing that yes, Zoe can move in. Section 9 is about terms. I always like to write in that we're going to do a buyer walkthrough about 48 hours prior to closing with 24 hours notice. Some people will also put in that they want to have another 2 or 3 walkthroughs between the removing of conditions but prior to possession date. I will include this condition if we want to have contractors doing some measuring. Maybe the in-laws are coming into town and they want to see the place. So absolutely, if you want to go measure windows, whatever, we will write that in. If you don't write those in, the seller does not need to give you permission to come and walk through their house until you actually own it. So it's better, again, write it in. If you don't exercise the option, that's okay too. I've had lots of buyers do that. Lastly, when we submit an offer, we're giving them a deadline of which they can accept it. We don't want to float out there that we're going to pay this amount of money and not have a deadline to which we will no longer be offering this to the sellers. So usually we like to do it the same day. But we have to also be respectful of people's time. So the days of leaving it open to midnight, not necessarily anymore. Sometimes we leave them open till 9 p.m. And now we have electronic signing, so we don't have to drive across town to get signatures. And if people are out of the province or even in a different time zone, we can usually accommodate. Occasionally, we will allow an offer to be open 24 hours or even 48 hours if we're dealing with an executor, if we're dealing with senior citizens, or if we're dealing with someone that's in a completely different part of the world and is probably more than 5 hours of a time zone, we might leave it till the next day. But you definitely want to get them to sign it on time so you can get that property and not risk losing it. Now, I'd like to go through these sections with a little bit more detail because there is some language in the contract that is very important to pay attention to. Section 1 of the contract is specific to the property. This is what you're actually buying. So we're going to include a legal description, the municipal address, but most importantly, we're going to make sure that you get that washer and dryer or that Bosch dishwasher that you saw. This is also the spot where we're going to include any other things that you might want to ask for that often sellers are willing to give to you and include in the sale. They can be anything from that trampoline in the backyard to the stools at the island in the kitchen. Maybe there's a pool table or a ping pong table in the basement. All of these things you want to make sure you include. Section 2 deals with the purchase price and the completion date. So interestingly enough, this is where we put the price down, and this is where we're also going to hope for the possession day that we're asking. So when negotiating the contract, those are two of the most important things that come back and forth is money and when you get the property. So make sure, a couple of my tips for possession day. Don't pick the last or the first day of the month. It is the busiest time at law offices, land title offices, and it's also the most expensive day of the month to move. So I would pick somewhere between the 3rd of the month and maybe the 25th of the month. That's just my general rule. The other thing is I don't like closing on a Friday. If something is going to go wrong at Friday at noon, at 12:01 the lawyers are out. They're gone. They're gone for the weekend. And so if you didn't get your keys by Friday at 12, you're not getting them till Monday. And it's going to be super frustrating if you've booked TELUS to come in and connect your Wi-Fi at 1 o'clock and you don't have keys. So 2 things there. Don't close on a Friday, because if there's a problem on a Thursday, we can still get your keys on Friday. And secondly, I would be very cautious about booking anything on possession day in case something goes wrong. Having said that, I have lots of buyers that do it, and hopefully we go humming along with no hiccups, but you never know. So don't jinx yourself. Used to also say in this contract, and this is actually new to me because they update these contracts every year, but it used to say the buyer and the seller agree to work cooperatively and in good faith, right below the purchase price. They don't say that anymore, but this is my big tip. If you work nicely with your seller, you're more likely to get what you would like. And if you get more up in arms and more aggressive in your negotiating, that's not showing good faith. The other thing is we all want to work towards completion. So we're trying to do a win-win for both, and we can only do that if both parties are being civil. So keep that in mind when you're writing down that purchase price, because if something is listed at $300,000 and you're writing $200,000, and then you're kind of wondering why the seller's not responding, well, that's why. They're not going to be cooperative because you're not in their real world with them. Section 17 is the expiry of the contract. You want to pay particular attention and make sure both parties have signed the final version of the contract within the time limit specified. I will give you a little FYI of what can happen if somebody doesn't sign on time or if somebody signs after the time. Legally, the contract ends at that certain time and there would be no further legal obligations of the seller. In other words, if we don't have the seller's signature by 9 p.m., at 9:01, they can enter into another contract. So make sure you pay particular attention to this. And just because it means you have to have it done by 9 p.m. doesn't mean you could be signing at 8:59 p.m. It means both parties have to receive a completed, fully executed copy of the contract, which means you better be signing by about 8:30, 8:40 so that your realtor can make sure it gets back to the other party. There is a part of the contract where you can write your lawyer. You don't need to know your lawyer at this time, but if you are competing, it certainly looks better that you've thought ahead and you have all the steps planned if you enter the lawyer's information. For that matter, if you're competing, it also helps to have your home inspection already booked to include with your offer presentation. So if you haven't already picked a lawyer, now's a good time to do some research, get some quotes, and include it on the purchase contract, but it's by no means mandatory. Thank you so much for tuning into Real Estate 101 and this episode on writing an offer. I hope you learned a lot about conditions, terms, and legally protecting yourself on your purchase. If you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you want to keep up with my Real Estate 101 series, please subscribe. I put out a video every week, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.